Red River, Oregon. Story of my life, right? Anyway, this ain't just for Tammy, it's for everybody. Not that anybody's gonna listen. There's only two types of friends that I had. The ones who ran the other way, and the other ones who were abusive as hell. In the end, all of it's abuse. All of it hurts. Now, I've cried a lot today, and I probably cry a lot more too. I miss everybody, and I got all these decent folks that I knew in Boulder. Thought I knew in Boulder. And it turned out that each and every one of them's got way too much selfishness going on to be able to even care about the harm another human being is going through. Most of them can't even pay attention to their own kids. Christine Buhid only saw her son twice after he was born. And only then because she was pissed off at Ed. So I made a video about the situation with Christopher Tapp. And Tammy Menscher got a hold of me on that YouTube, and she explained to me that the situation was not the same. And I do believe in allowing people to speak their piece. They got to do it in the right place, though. For Tammy Menscher, she went to the right place. She went to the source. The equivalent for me would be going to Natalie Bollinger or Maddie Boa or Tim Beeson. When she came to me and had things to say, I listened to them because I think she should have the right to say them. And she remembers the things that she said before, and she agrees with it. She understands that I wasn't lying about her to be malicious, that I was honest. We all get stuff wrong, and also there's the victim mentality. A lot of victims, in order to try to keep the peace, will later on claim that it didn't happen. And that makes it difficult too. Where you so much want that person to be a part of your life or your kid's life or whoever's life, but they're so busy being that transitionally hateful person. And then you try to appease them. If you give them a little bit more than they really deserve, maybe they'll do the right thing as far as their offspring goes. And I knew that was going to be a major topic of conversation as far as all this went. I knew that his lineage and his kids would be something that would be brought up. There's a lot of stuff that, in that she admits to things, and honestly admits to things that I already knew. But I didn't go running every detail out to everyone. There's also things that I did not know in her version of the story. It's not the same one that I heard the first time out of her, but that's also because the first time I heard it out of her was during a situation where she was trying to get him to be a dad, despite the fact that he was breaking up with Tammy. And you guys, I know how much you hate it when I do the screaming and shouting thing, and you definitely hate the word cunt with a passion, especially here in America. Well, there's a very specific group of people I learned this from. Christopher Tapp is one of them, and you can ask Tammy about the verbal abuse. And I can't verify any physical abuse against her. I can't verify any physical abuse against Fuzzy as far as that goes. I can verify the verbal abuse. Now, if she had come to me for help about it, I'd be able to verify that as well, but she didn't. She did not come to me for help about it. And that doesn't make her a bad person. She had her own family that was supposed to be helping with that stuff. You always think that they're gonna, or hope that they're gonna. You always gotta hope, right? Now that hatred, that screaming and that shouting for me comes from being surrounded by situations where like now, I got to try to show my evidence, and I need help doing that. That's what I've needed help with since before Natalie was killed. Look at what these people have been doing, and fucking do something about it. This can't be legal. It's illegal if I do what they're doing, so how's it legal when they do it? How is it that I get blown off when they do it to me? Well, the mentally ill tag. These people pretend that I must be the fucking villain and they must be the victim because I'm mentally ill. I'm mentally ill. Come on now, 80% of the United States is diagnosed with something in the DSM-5, so when you consider that yeah, it means that 80% of all Americans are quote-unquote mentally ill, and any one of y'all could have to go through this for the rest of your lives over something stupid where cops decided your rights don't matter. Well, hopefully it puts it in perspective for you, but it doesn't look like it's gonna. You've had plenty of time. Where the fuck is my goddamn lighter? All I want is a cigarette. Oh, this reminds me of the movie Ghost, where there's the dead guy. He's a ghost, and he just wants to smoke a cigarette. So he's been practicing as a ghost to move stuff so that he can smoke himself a cigarette. I might be that ghost. We'll see. Oh, there it is. Yeah. You know, I probably shouldn't make this joke, being as it was so insanely true just now, but if it was up my ass, I'd know. Well, apparently, I was sitting on it and didn't even know it. What's this all got to do with Tammy? Well, she knows I was going to her to try to get help. And she also knows that I ultimately had to end up trying to get help from Fuzzy, who cursed and ranted and raved and was violent and just Jameson. And it's not easy living with an alcoholic, especially when they're a violent alcoholic. So I can understand that situation too. But what she was mad about especially was the part with her son. That's Fuzzy's son too, and he refuses to take a DNA test. It's been like 21 years now. His son is a grown-ass goddamn adult. He still won't take a DNA test? What's that about? It's a lot of time. He went to California and lived in the Redwood Forest for a while just so that he could avoid any sort of court paperwork. That sounds like a real magical place to try to live, don't it? The redwood forests. Well, this is part of it. Here in Hood River, there's a whole bunch of giant sequoias here. They're not as big as the ones down there because they haven't been growing quite as long, but I've seen a couple of them here that are probably easily 500-600 years old. They're big. They're tall too. But nothing by comparison with those in Northern California. Those ones are big. And I guess once you get closer to Southern Oregon, there's some that are considered medium range because most of the ones here are considered small for redwoods. And that's difficult to understand because they dwarf everything. Everything around them is small. But there's usually a few of them growing in the same area, so you get some other miscellaneous trees that grow in between there. It's nice, pretty country. But there's also the fact that for a lot of y'all, you look at it as a vacation. For him trying to avoid his paperwork stuff, and for Tammy trying to get something done about that, and, you know, that's a pain in the ass for anybody. Whether you're a man or a woman, when the other person doesn't want to help to coordinate to have their child's life be an actual life, when you're still fighting over taking a DNA test and your kid's already graduated school or supposed to have, I don't know. I didn't realize it had been that long. Like I met Tammy and Fuzzy in 2003 while they were still together. And at that point in time, oh man, did I meet them in 2001? When I met them, she was still pregnant. So I want to say that would be 2003. Her son would be 20 some point next year, I believe. So he's definitely an adult. But not old enough to buy alcohol. I suppose thinking about it and doing the math on it's pretty important. I got a window down. The mosquitoes aren't being too bad, but I am itchy as hell. So the situation with Tammy and her abuse, and when she spoke to me a few years ago about the situation, she definitely made it sound like Fuzzy hadn't done anything wrong. And you know, I get that she was trying to patch things up with him, not as a boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband, wife thing, but just as a, you know, let's get something done at least about the parenting. You know why they call them deadbeat dads, don't you? Because you can beat them to death, you're still never going to see your child support. If he doesn't pay that, he goes to jail. He screams all the time that she takes all of his money. And of course, where did I learn that? Screaming at the top of my lungs and using the word cunt. That was definitely 100% a Fuzzy Bear trait. Christopher Tapp, I should say. Each one of these people that was a hero to me, I got to see the dent in their armor. Sorry, my mouth is dry and I got nothing to drink, but I do have yogurt. I gotta make do with what we got. For me, I was lucky that women weren't really that attracted to me because I got no kids. That means I can do things that a lot of parents can't. There's a lot of these parents that I knew that were messed up and did a lot of drugs, a whole lot, and they thought it was okay. They did a lot of hurtful things that hurt a lot of people. Now, for Tammy, I let her know if there's something I can do, then she can let me know. She said there's nothing that can be done. You know, it was years and years ago. For me, there is something that can be done. Someone can still take a look and someone can speak up. Instead of saying, I'm sorry to me, they can speak up to the public about why. If you think it sucks that that happened, you can speak up and say, hey, this is not okay. And you get to see and you get to feel how the wrong information can actually harm another human being. Once you know that, you know a lot of the things that I try to explain to people. One of the things with folks on the streets is that people, once they get that victim mentality, that they just have to take it. You say move on. But what you're saying when you tell somebody to move on is that they just have to take it. Even having to move on is abusive. Like, let's say you move on to another state, you have to travel and move to another state and uproot yourself and every part of your life. For me, I've had to repeatedly do that. With Tammy having to raise a son on her own, with Chris not willing to be any part of that child's life. Like, imagine what it's like for that kid. Now, there's a lot of people that, you know, with this Tammy thing and Fuzzy thing, like, you can't be around or talk to Christopher Tapp without him fucking flipping his wig about Tammy to this day. And yeah, I do feel, and I definitely felt then as well, that if I was her, I wouldn't want to be in a room alone with him. With the things that he says, I mean, he does have and harbor a lot of hatred, but it's hatred for things that, it's a much different situation than with mine. The other thing is, you know, with Tammy and her trying to patch things up and misleading the situation because she thought it would help the situation. Well, later on, she wanted to be angry at me for repeating what she had told me. And, you know, she understands that she did say those things and that it did mislead it and that did make it so that from what I understood, the information I gave was correct. And from the information that she'd given me at that point in time, the information was correct. But that's another thing about victims. We're always told we have to look at the bright side. We need to try to move on. Move on, move on, move on. It's always move on, isn't it? Move on to where? If you mean just forget about it, well, there are people who are going to ensure that you never get to forget about certain things. When you're a parent, every time you see your kid, you get reminded of the parent that's not there, that you are alone in raising that kid. Tammy also claimed that she was homeless at the time, which might have been correct. But I did point out to Tammy about how she had thrown me away when I went to her for help. and how I would have much rather had her help me than have Christopher Tapp help me. Because his idea of helping me was getting drunk, screaming at the top of his lung about Tammy and screaming that she's a cunt, and of course shoving me, telling me I just needed to leave, so I'd leave, and then he'd yell at me to come back. He didn't mean it. I'd come back and he'd want to sit with me in the truck, and then he started shoving me in the truck. I'm like, fuck no, I'm getting the hell out of here. But also I couldn't travel far. I got back injuries, and I had to carry a backpack full of evidence. Now I got half a car full of evidence, and half a car full of stuff that's supposed to keep me alive. You know, food and blankets and shit like that. Problem is being able to find a place to use it. Where do you go that's safe? For some people, they have a family that'll somewhat keep them safe, but that family's not going to live forever. When they die, a lot of these people who depended on their families end up in situations like mine, where they're going, well, who can I depend on? Well, nobody. Nobody anymore. When they needed help, you were too busy with your own problems. And that's one of the most messed up things about this whole impoverished situation, is that if you wait until you're up and out to help lift someone else up and out, you're never going to get up and out, because you're always out for yourself. Meanwhile, you get pissed off that a Mexican family comes here with nothing, and within a year they all got vehicles, and you're going, hey, those Mexicans are stealing all of this, that, and no, they're working together. They're working together. That's the difference. Those people that you want to make fun of because they want to come here and steal your jobs, you claim, no, they're actually willing to work those jobs for those shit wages, for those corporations you love so much. You guys got no idea how much stuff would just sit in fields and rot if it weren't for, well, migrant workers. And then you guys want to make a, oh, well, I didn't say migrant workers. No, but you treat the migrant workers like they're all illegal aliens, no matter what. And you want to pretend all this stuff doesn't tie in together, like the situation with Christopher Tapp and all of his hatred and anger. And for me, having to go to people like that for help. With Tammy, I'm sure that when she was throwing me away, she wasn't thinking about the situations I was going through. She was thinking to herself about her own problems. It's not that she was intending to be evil through her selfishness. For me, I can't help but imagine myself in their situation when they're telling me their stories, though. So for me, there's no escaping it. There's no escaping looking at another person's point of view. And although I was never allowed to defend myself, I feel that if I gave the wrong information on Tammy, I feel that she should have the right to correct it. She should have the right to speak up, and she should have the right to defend herself. And I feel that she actually did so, and I think that she did a great job of it. I can understand her reasons for doing the things that she did. And I'm not going to pretend that he wasn't verbally abusive in front of me nearly every time I saw them. Now, a lot of times when he'd show up on Pearl Street, him and Tammy, they were both sober, but by the end of the night, Christopher Tapp was drunk as a skunk doing stupid shit. And a lot of people want to make the excuse of, oh, he was probably drunk. He was drunk. Does that make it okay? No. If you commit murder when you're drunk, is it okay? No. If you commit rape when you're drunk, is it okay? No. Robert Franklin Warnick, registered Sex offender, felony sexual assault against a child. Why did he get away with the things that he did to me? I want to know that. Why is the male victims aren't heard? Now with Christopher Tapp, I did hear his side. And I heard Matt's side, and I heard Tammy's side, and I've heard on a different occasion a different story from Tammy. With Chris, it's difficult to get exactly what his story is because he's always screaming the word cunt about Tammy. It's hard to, and I don't mean awkward, I mean it's impossible to try to have a decent conversation with him because he has so much hatred for Tammy. That's where a lot of people get me wrong. They think that I have some hatred for Natalie. No, what I have a hatred for is being abused as if I'm some sort of a monster. I'm against being abused for a false narrative. I'm against being abused for lies. There's a lot of stuff that I've done in my life that is good and for other people. There's also times in my life where I had to be, well, selfish. But not selfish with the truth. There's a lot of people that wanted me to keep their stuff private, and I definitely and for surely did. Most of those people took advantage of that, however. That doesn't alleviate the need for them to come forward in court. You don't want the public to know, that's fine. But if you won't come forward in court, I will let the public know. That's how most people ended up on my YouTube channel. If Christopher Tapp is not the victim, with the information that Tammy gave me and the stuff that I've personally gone through with him, I believe her. I also believe, as Desiree puts it, in putting everything out on Front Street. If you got nothing to hide, don't hide. Anyway, Tammy verified that Christopher Tapp is physically abusive when he's been drinking. That definitely works out in my favor. That never should have happened. Sorry, hungry. So my vehicle doesn't work. I'm in this parking lot. And I hope my words do some good. That doesn't mean they will. I put Christopher Tapp in the same category that I put Christine Lushinger in, or Christine Buhit. Being a donor does not make you a parent. In order to be a parent, you have to be a part of that child's life. My dad was rarely a part of my life, but there was a few points in my life where he was a part of my life, and there's a lot of people who will never get that. There's a lot of people who grow up not knowing either one of their parents. takes all types. And those kids, well, those kids are the most screwed. Ain't no family out there for them. I hope that Tammy will find the time and be able to speak up for what she knows, or at least admit that I went to her for help. A lot of people want to say, don't blame me, Sean. You know what? I'm not blaming those people for what happened. I'm blaming them for not coming forward about what they knew. Why was I trying to reach out for help? Most people didn't know. They were too busy telling me how to think and how to feel. When they're going through their own shit, though, I mean, it's difficult not to hit that petty mode. I try not to be the most petty, shady shark out here. I try to be good to people because it's the right thing to do. When you try to maintain a friendship with two different people, both Fuzzy and Tammy, after that situation, that ain't easy. And a lot of those situations, it's kind of like the mentality that Amy Spencer's kids had with Rayanna Ingersoll. They were going to call the cops on Rayanna, but they thought that Rayanna automatically had my side, that I was automatically going to take hers, that I was automatically going to be, oh yes, King Rayanna or Queen Rayanna, everything that she says goes. And I had to explain to those two little girls, I had to say, hey, if you make the call, I'm right here with you. But you have to make the call. At that point in time, I had already made at least, I want to say I had already made the first phone call, but not the second one. I ended up calling them 3 times anonymously and then 2 or 3 times not anonymously about abuse. Also, I had to try to fulfill my obligations as a Nebraskan because every Nebraskan, or everyone in Nebraska, is a mandated reporter. I didn't find out about the abuse with Amy and Andrew Witcher until I was out of Nebraska. But I remember the situation. And I did make that telephone call, and I did try to turn her in. We also get to see in the news that a lot of my predators by name are actually in trouble. And sure, it's not big names like Nancy Pelosi or Donald flippin' Trump or Joe friggin' Biden or any of those, but you get to see that, yeah, a lot of my predators by name getting locked up. People like Sarah Nelson, what's she in prison for? Well, she was an assistant warden. Then she was put in prison for sexual assault against an inmate. Same thing with Michelle DeCini. And then we've also got, well, there's a lot going on. None of this is your fault, Tammy, but I need help stopping it. I don't know how to help in your situation, but if you've got suggestions that I haven't tried, I'll try them. But I need help myself too, Miss Tammy. And when I went to you and I ended up having to go to Chris, it's not your fault I had to go to Chris. That would denote that you and Chris were the only 2 people I ever went to for help. No, I went to all my friends for help. They didn't understand, especially the women are not understanding of what this does to a man, of how horrible a man can be treated because he is accused of shit that he didn't do. And that doesn't make Miss Tammy not worth listening to, not worth hearing, or not worth allowing her to say her piece or speak her piece. There are people who have gotten onto my channel just to be assholes, and you know what? They don't last very long. But Tammy, she may have started off seeming like an asshole, But I personally believe that she has the right to say what she wants to say, especially regarding situations concerning her, especially in the venue by which she felt attacked. And she very much did feel attacked by my post, and I understand why she felt that way. Now, the part that really gets me, though, is who told her? Because Tammy is not one of those people who's going to sit around just watching my show. And that's what it is to most of you. It's just entertainment to you. This was never meant to be a show. This was never meant to be an entertaining picture for you. This is meant to show you in real life these fucking statistics. In real life, yes, I do show you the dirty, nasty fucking hobos. And then I show the ones that mind their own business. I show you the sober ones when they're fucking flipping out. And I show you the fucking ones that are messed up in the head who are flipping out. I show you all of them. There's always more that can be done. But sometimes you get exhausted. What I'm insulted by is people who are exhausted before they ever try. Anyway, please don't read too much into it. Good to be radio. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and no victim left behind.